Hello, everyone. Here we are in our second week of Christian Faith and Thought. And I have appreciated your comments and your thinking on as you respond to the video, God in America. Great thoughts there. And I will be giving my own observations and summary comments on the forum tomorrow sometime. And so be sure and read. I will post them to the announcements forum. And be sure and read that as I take all of your comments and put them together and come up with some observations and then my own comments as well. What I want to do in this video is I want to talk about a little bit, give some context to what you'll be doing this week. And it comes out of what I heard in church this morning as I was listening to our priest give the homily. And one of the things that he said was that God is not an object or a subject to be investigated, but rather he reveals himself to us. And that is so much of what we're doing, especially in this coming week, in this week ahead of us, but also what we're trying to attempt in this course, Christian Faith and Thought. And the way that God reveals himself to us is, first of all, in creation. And the fact that God does reveal himself to us in creation um, means that Christians have a distinct view of how creation should be treated or taken care of because it has to do with God's revelation and what God has done. So there is that whole concept of in Christianity that because creation is a revelation of God, it is sacred. It is sacred. Then there is the fact that God has revealed himself through the written word, the Bible. And I want to come back to that because that has to do with this, what you'll be doing this week. And then the third way that God has revealed himself to us is in the person of Jesus Christ, the incarnation, where God took upon himself a flesh and became a human being and lived and moved among us, was crucified, died, buried, and rose again and ascended into heaven. The belief around the person and work of Jesus Christ is the central belief of Christianity. And without Jesus Christ, there is no Christianity. So these are ways that God reveals himself to us. And I want to come back to that piece of the Bible because the podcast you'll be listening to has to do with understanding the Bible, especially it touches on more than anything on the New Testament. And in a way, it is true that the Bible is a very dangerous book. And the fact is that God took an enormous risk in allowing things to be written about him through human beings who experienced, in some ways, a relationship with God. And it's dangerous not because, as some people say, that the Bible can mean anything you want it to mean. As you listen to the podcast, I want you to pay attention to what the speaker says about why you can't say that about the Bible. And the danger is that as we look back from where we are in history at this point, we look back and we say um, how awful the concept that some of those writers in of the Bible had, and how terrible some of the things are that they wrote down and ascribe these things to God. Now, one of the things that we have to understand is that whenever you take something as like the revelation of the person of God and try to put it down on paper, you have limitations. You have limitations in terms of what words, what language can you use? Language can only do so much in helping us understand things. And then you also have the difficulty of our own human limitations in being able to understand the meaning of what the things that happen, what they mean. How do we understand God? We, as human beings, we are limited by our culture. We are limited by our finiteness as humans, and we are limited by how much our brains can truly comprehend. So, in all of that, it is a marvel to me as I look at Scripture that we can understand anything about God at all through the written word, and that God didn't allow and choose to be revealed is through that word. And it is true, there are parts of the Bible that I struggle with because I don't understand what they mean. But I'd rather suspend judgment than judge and say that God is an angry God. He's a judgmental God. He's the because what we have to do is we have to take the whole picture. God is revealed in creation. God is revealed in the person of Jesus Christ, and then in the Scripture. So as you listen to the podcast, think about what the speaker is saying about how we understand the Bible, and you'll be writing about in the forum a little bit about where your understanding of the Bible comes from, and that's the thing I want you to keep questioning yourself. Where do my beliefs come from? How did I acquire this belief? Did I choose? Did I? A lot of people who criticize the Bible haven't read it, and so or don't understand it. So it's one of those things that you need to keep in mind as you think about that. Then you'll also be writing about your own spiritual journey, and this is another way that God reveals himself to us personally as we go through life. The things that we experience, good and bad, temper and affect the way we think about God. And one of the things that we are tempted to do at times is, especially if we go through very negative and difficult times, the tendency is to think not kindly of God, and not and misunderstand what God is doing in our lives. And so, as we think about our personal journey and our understanding of God that comes from that personal journey, I would encourage you to remember these two poles, especially that God, the way God has revealed himself in creation, and the way God has revealed himself in the person of Jesus Christ. And then, as we seek to understand what does this mean, all these things that I've been living, how do I interpret, how do I find meaning about God in that experience, and testing those ideas and thoughts, interpretations through these two poles: the creation that God has revealed about himself in the beauty, the intricacy, the variety, the creativity, all the different ways that God has revealed himself in a God of color, uh, in creation, and then the way that he's revealed himself in the person of Jesus Christ, in his compassion, his wisdom, his forgiveness, his ability to accept all people, to be the loving presence of God in a fallen humanity, a broken humanity. So I'll be looking forward to reading your personal spiritual journeys, and I hope that uh, these thoughts will help you along the way, and encourage you to explore and discover what God has revealed about himself in your own personal life. If you need any help, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Until then, until next week, God bless you in your journey.